The City of Phoenix holds community budget hearings throughout April, allowing residents to comment and make suggestions on the city manager's trial budget before final decisions are made. This public discussion is among the reasons the city's budget so closely matches the community's highest priorities each fiscal year.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for coming out to the District 2 and District 1, or District 1 and District 2, depending on your preference, budget hearing. Felda, I don't know if you want to say anything, but we are simply going to introduce City Manager Ed Zerker, who's going to introduce the video presentation of the budget, and then after that, I think we're going to do the question.
Well, since I said it all, that's very easy, so I will take it, and I appreciate it. So, Ed,
thank you, Councilman Wood. Microphones out.
Are we on? Let's try this one. Okay, there we go. Thank you. So, good evening. Welcome to the budget hearing. This is budget hearing number 9 out of 17. And we're glad you're here with us. We hope you get a chance to pick up a budget pamphlet that has some detail. There's a lot more detail online at phoenix.gov/budget as well. And so we want to hear from the public and have a conversation about what you think about the budget and what things we should be thinking about as we move forward into May, when we'll have a full proposal based on the conversation we have here. So if you'd like to speak, we'd ask you to fill out a comment card so we have your name. And when you speak, we'd ask you to come speak at the microphone. We'll make sure it works by then. This is being recorded on Channel 11. It will be on YouTube. We are taking minutes. So the comments are also available to the council members each week and to the public from every meeting. So we're glad you're taking some time to join us. We have about a 10-minute video that gives a bit of an overview. There is, again, more depth in this pamphlet here, and then even more depth online at phoenix.gov/budget. So with that, we'll roll the video and then we'll go to comments.
Welcome to your first look at the City of Phoenix 2017-18 trial budget. The City of Phoenix wants to hear from you. Your ideas can help shape the budget each year. The final budget provides the plan for how the city will spend taxpayer money on key services you want and need, like police, fire, transit, city parks and swimming pools, libraries, youth and education, graffiti prevention, arts and culture, and help for seniors, and how they all could be impacted. The 2017-18 Phoenix City budget is balanced as required by state law and city charter. In this trial budget, the city is preserving the services our residents value. Out of the $1.2 billion general fund budget, there is a small $1.9 million surplus. This video will present proposals on how to use these funds. So here's how the city's budget breaks down. There are 3 sources: the general fund, enterprise fund, and special revenue fund. Let's start with the general fund. 3/4 of the general fund is for police, fire, courts, with the remaining 25% going for everything else like libraries, parks, senior services, arts, and administrative and support functions. Enterprise fund departments include aviation, water services, solid waste services, and the convention center. Special revenue funds come mostly from dedicated taxes that must be used for a specific purpose. For example, the Phoenix Parks and Preserves Initiative, also called 3PI, or Transportation 2050. That funding goes for transit, light rail, and streets. Under the strong leadership of the Mayor and City Council, we are glad to say the budget is balanced. Phoenix employees strive every day to work smarter, save money, and serve our customers. That includes making sound financial decisions, like keeping our credit rating strong, spending within our means, and looking for savings to use for important community services. Now let's take a look at the recommendations for additions to the budget for next fiscal year. In the general fund, there is a little less than $2 million extra, plus some opportunities to use funds differently to add service. First, adding 16 civilian police assistants. They will take over some administrative duties, freeing up officers so the officers can respond to emergency calls.
So adding police assistants to our existing staffing resources is going to do a couple of things. It's going to get our first responders back on those priority calls for service faster and increase our service delivery to our community.
Next, focusing on homelessness in our city. The plan is to create more outreach teams by eliminating 6 vacant positions in the Human Services Department. This would free up about $500,000 to send teams of outreach workers to homeless residents on the street to connect them with services and a place for shelter.
These services are critical to the city. These professional outreach teams will work hand in hand with our community partners, neighborhoods, police, to bring these really important services to a very vulnerable population.
For the library, there are 2 recommendations. Contract savings would make security at Burton Bar Central Library permanent, and the other is to create more opportunities to engage kids in educational programs. Now, that leaves about 1/3 of the surplus untouched. So the proposed budget calls for strategically setting aside that funding, about $641,000, into a rainy day fund. The intent is to offset a potential deficit in the 2018-19 budget, which was projected in the city's 5-year forecast. Okay, time now to get back to the 2017-18 budget proposals. Let's look at the enterprise funds. These services are funded with user fees, with the exception of the Phoenix Convention Center. The budget calls for putting a new emergency operations center and ambulance at Sky Harbor International Airport. This would ensure that if anyone at the airport needs medical attention, they can get to the hospital quickly from Sky Harbor. Next, the solid waste funds pays for our trash collection and recycling services. It's proposed to add 8 positions to enhance worker safety and increase collections. Perhaps you've heard of the Reimagine Phoenix campaign? This is all part of support for the goal from mayor and council to convert 40% of what ends up in our landfills by the year 2020 through recycling, composting, and education. Okay, now to other restricted funds, which are dedicated to specific services. The Phoenix Parks and Preserve Initiative Fund comes from a 1/10 cent tax to support our world-renowned parks system. To support safe use of our parks and preserve system and public safety, the trial budget would add 22 new park rangers. This would extend trailhead hours and provide additional support at flatland parks around the city.
By adding rangers, we can extend the park hours at specific locations by 2 additional hours, which means that instead of hiking in the heat of the day, you can hike a little bit later. You can drive actually into the trailhead and continue your hiking later in the evening while it's still a little bit cooler.
13 of the new park rangers would be assigned to the city's more heavily visited locations, including North Mountain, Hyastawa Peak, South Mountain, and other trailheads like Echo Canyon, Cholla, and Lookout Mountain. The other 9 would be assigned to the flatland parks.
Additional rangers in our community and flatland parks provide that extra layer of customer service that we currently don't have, and it'll provide an opportunity for people to get education or learn more about what's going on in the parks, and just provide that extra layer of enhanced customer service.
Also included would be funding to maintain 2 new dog parks, one at Reach 11 and the other at Deer Valley Park. From the Transportation 2050 funds, the budget calls for expanding service on some of the busiest routes around the city. It would also increase weekday midday frequency on routes serving Thomas and Camelback roads. And from the Development Services Fund, the proposal is to add several positions to keep up with increased building permits and inspections due to economic growth. Also, to increase and enhance communication and continue our efforts to streamline processes. One last important update is on the hiring of more police officers and firefighters. The city is on target to meet its recruiting goals of 3,125 officers and 1,615 firefighters.
This budget that we're talking about now includes the addition of roughly 250 officers, and that should be getting us to our sustainable goal.
So it's important for us to keep the public safe and live within our means. In
In 2009, our public safety funds were significantly in a deficit. To avoid layoffs and to balance the budget, we stopped hiring. By 2015, we were back, and we've been hiring police officers and firefighters since then.
While we're down from our peak level of staffing in the police department, we're also significantly down in our calls for service to the department. Over the last few years, as population and calls for service have increased, we're also fortunate to return to hiring officers.
So we've been recruiting in-state for a long time, but now we have that extra effort to be able to go out-state to recruit. What an amazing opportunity to increase the number of people that we find and can look for to build our staffing here in the Phoenix Police Department.
It allows a safe, effective response to whatever emergency is happening in the city of Phoenix. So whether it's a heart attack, if it's a house fire, structure fire, if it's a mountain rescue, if I have a four-person staffing, it ensures adequate, safe response to meet whatever needs we encounter.
Now keep in mind, this year's budget hasn't been adopted just yet. Your input is important, and the City of Phoenix wants to hear from you on what the upcoming budget should look like. So to recap a few highlights, the 2017-18 trial budget calls for 16 new police assistants to free up sworn officers from administrative work, 22 park rangers, which would allow some trailheads to be open longer during the summer, eliminating 6 vacant positions to free up money to expand the city's homeless outreach. Again, this is a balanced budget with some money set aside as a head start for future use. 17 public hearings will take place this month across all council districts, and you are encouraged to attend. Make sure you pick up a budget pamphlet outlining all the proposals and options at any of the public meeting or online at phoenix.gov/budget. You can also send your comments or questions to budget.research@phoenix.gov, or to reach us by phone, please call 602-262-4800. You can also comment on social media by using #PhoenixBudget. Thank you for your interest in the City of Phoenix budget and being a part of the budget process.
On? Okay, we're going to check. Rod, do you need this also, or do you have it? You're good. Okay. Just making sure we get that all taken care of. I want to just thank the city employees who are here tonight. Thank you guys for being here. There's city employees here to listen, and also to, if there are specific questions, they can answer that. None of them are being paid extra to be here. This is part of their day, and really appreciate them coming out and being part of the hearing. So with that, I think we'll go to the cards and take your comments. Again, if you would come and speak from this microphone so everyone can hear it, and also so Channel 11 can pick you up. We'll ask you to take about no more than 3 minutes. We'll let you know when we're at 3 minutes so that we have time for everybody. And but we have, right now I have 5 cards. So if anybody's come in and they would like to speak, we just ask you to put a card in so that we can announce you. And we will start with, our first card is Craig Tripkin.
Yep, we're working. Thank you, Mr. City Manager, council members. I appreciate your time. I'm here to speak on behalf of Central Arizona Shelter Services. Arizona Shelter Services, CAS, has been providing homeless services in Phoenix, and really top flight services, and we're the largest shelter in the state for over 30 years. Included in what we do is not just a bed, not just a cot for somebody, but also is significant casework. And I'm here to tell you that we have 2 very dire needs that we face right now, and at CAS. One of them is we have a $200,000 deficit for next year, and that includes a 30% increase in our private fundraising. So we need to leverage our private fundraising, and we need some city help for that. That's increased operating costs, health insurance costs, utilities, on and on and on, just costs going up. And we're down about $200,000 from where we were from the city funding from 2 years ago, or excuse me, 7 years ago. So there's that. Secondly, and importantly, our client-to-caseworker ratio is 50 to 1 right now. National standard is supposed to be more like 30 to 1. And we need to improve our caseworker ratio. I applaud the city in looking at doing an outreach program. We need to, it's important for us, well, let me just back up. Homelessness is getting worse throughout the city. The next point in time count that comes out of MAG is going to show, I think, a dramatic increase in homelessness. We need to open up beds down at the Human Services campus. And in order to do that, excuse me, we need to provide better casework. And in order to provide better caseworkers, we need more caseworkers. It's a simple equation. We need to lower the length of stay so we can open up beds so that when the hardworking city staff that's out trying to get people in can get people to come into CAS, that we've got beds available for them. Well, I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for your past support, and I appreciate all that you do. Let me add one other thing. I would appreciate it very much if you would look at what we're asking about in our needs in sort of a fungible way, that you'd consider that we have needs, but they're not separate specific baskets of needs between the two of them. We need to improve our caseworkers, but we also need to pay our utilities and our health insurance and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. The next speaker we have is Rick Neymark. And Rick will be followed by Lauren Kasicki, if I said that correct.
Good evening, council members and city manager and staff. Thank you for having these hearings. I think it's a really important part of the process, and I'm glad that you take public input before you just decide on the budget. Want to, first of all, congratulate the city manager and the staff and all of you for finding a way to write the projected deficit for this year. You've done an amazing job, and I think that the priorities laid out in your trial budget are outstanding. I am part of an organization that is focused, it's a new organization that's focused on maintaining an asset that we've invested in, which is public art. We have a 1% for Art program in many of our facilities, including just right out the window there. There's a nice piece of public art that the taxpayers paid for. But unfortunately, wear and tear and graffiti and use and time, just like with roads and libraries and other things, when you build them, you got to maintain them. And so our mission and our nonprofit that we started, that I sit on the board of, is focused on educating the public about the city's public art program and collection, but also to make sure that we're doing a good job of maintaining it. We're asking the city to do its job, and we're also doing some fundraising. So first of all, let me thank you, because last year when we started, you all helped by adding $25,000 into the existing budget to begin the process of building up the maintenance budget to where it needs to be. The annual need for that maintenance budget is around $100,000. And it's everything from fixing those beautiful bridges on the 51 or the shade structures at the soccer fields out, I forgot the name of the park, I'm losing my mind. Reach 11. And the shade structures at the transit, park and rides, and those kinds of things. So it's just really, really important. And I recently took a tour and I saw the bad condition of our public art. So what I'm asking is that you get us to the level that the annual regular maintenance need is, which is a total of $100,000. You can get there by just adding $25,000 this year and in future year, ongoing basically. So if we can get to that $100,000 level, we can do the basics. Now, there are still some non-basics, like replacing the net, it's something very expensive. That's where we come in. We are hoping to do some major fundraising for the big ticket items that are not sort of the ongoing regular maintenance. So that's my pledge to you. And I know the budget's tight. I really like the idea of the rainy day fund. But perhaps as you squeeze out just a little bit more, or even put it in, and if things get tighter in the year, this is not like adding staff where then you have to cut back hours or cut back programs if things need to contract. This is money that you use to maintain something. And just like your house, if you can't maintain it this week, well, maybe next week or the week after you'll get to it. So I just want to thank you for listening, and I hope you have an opportunity to squeeze out little $25,000 to get us up to where we need to be for maintaining the investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Lauren is next, and Lauren will be followed by Daryl Kriplin.
Why does creativity matter? Why does culture matter? Why do young people matter?
We are the Youth Arts and Culture Council for the Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture.
I am the future. I am dramatic. I am an actress.
I'm a choral singer.
We are artists from all different disciplines.
Who advocate for access to arts and culture for young people in all communities of Phoenix.
We believe in
Expression.
Youth representation. Conversation. Opportunity. Access.
how do the arts serve you?
The arts serve me by giving me an outlet for expression. The arts expand my horizons as a grown adult. The arts serve me by giving me a sense of purpose and community. How do I serve my community through the arts? I serve my community by offering my unique perspective to those who relate and connect with us. Why do the arts matter?
The arts are important to me because they have allowed me to understand the true meaning of happiness. I have been in the Phoenix Children's Chorus, a nonprofit organization that values giving youth opportunities to sing around the country and the world. I have had the opportunity to sing in the festivals that have been hosted by the Choirs of America Association and work with the director of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. And getting an opportunity to sing in Carnegie Hall. PCC has also allowed me to create wonderful friendships and has given me a safe place to sing.
The arts matter to me because they give me the power to create positive change. I'm a volunteer violin teacher with a new organization in Harmony Project, and I get free pregnant violinist with 8-year-old girl named Romana. When I first met Romana, she was very shy, so we never initiated any conversation. But after a year worth of lessons and continuous work, I've been able to see this young little girl develop into a confident artist, but also into a passionate person. This is why the arts matter to me, because it gives me the opportunity to create positive change.
Your investment in the arts will be returned. The benefits to the community are greater than dollars and cents. The arts create a more connected, more vibrant community. How are you serving the arts, your community, and growth? Thank you.
We think that's a first for a budget hearing. An accordion, a flute, and a violin. We've never had that before. We've had ballet, but we've never had music. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Next, we have Daryl Kriplian, and he's followed by Regina Nixon.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for letting us come and speak to you folks and the community. Thank you for your time and coming out and trying to be more educated in what the budget is. All right. I'm here as a representative of the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association. We're the representative unit that represents all the law enforcement, or the rank and file police officers and detectives of the city of Phoenix. I want to read something before I begin my presentation. Exceptional customer service. We exist to provide responsive and consistent customer service to the community and to the city employees. We exhibit empathy, by listening to each other and to the public in our efforts to deliver services that improve people's lives. This is the first core value listed on the City of Phoenix's website. I'm here to tell you that as a police department, we're failing at that every day. And the way we're failing is not because the officers don't care and provide customer service that's higher than most. We don't have the proper staffing to address your guys' issues when you call us in a timely manner. Here are some facts. The average response time for a priority 1 call are over 7 minutes. Actual response times directly from some officers sometimes exceed 8, 10, almost 15 minutes. That's a long time if you're on the other end of the phone with something really bad happening. Response times for priority 3 calls, such as assaults where a suspect is gone or a burglary from your house, it's not uncommon for those to take 3, 4, sometimes 6, 8 hours for an officer to get to, depending on the area of town you work and the call volume and how many people were able to come to work that day. The video presentation that we all watched says that calls for service are declining. They are in fact declining. However, the range is much different than what was portrayed. In 2002, the calls for service were 876,000 as reported in the video. In 2010, the stats, how we computated them, changed. In 2002, all of the OV work that the officers did were computed into that total calls for service. In 2010, we changed the stats, so that was no longer computed. So the actual total calls for service in 2016 were 836,909. It's about 39,000 less calls. With the staffing crisis we have, that 39,000 calls is really wreaking havoc. Some traffic collisions, if you're involved in a traffic collision during rush hour, sometimes it takes an hour for an officer to get there, and if your car is disabled in the middle of the intersection, it's pretty unnerving considering all the traffic that's backing up behind you. City management must correct this manpower crisis that we find ourselves in. Not only is it poor customer service, it is dangerous for our men and women who have taken an oath to serve the citizens of Phoenix. The city manager feels that the 3125 officers is sufficient because that's what the city can afford. Coincidentally, our staffing was at 3388 officers in 2008. That's about 263 less. A constantly recognized staffing level for police departments around the country is 2.5 officers per 1,000 residents. In our city, that would equate to 4,000 officers from the chief down. We're currently at about 1.7 officers per 1,000. If we get to the 2.5 per 1,000 residents, we can better ensure the safety of our residents and our officers and provide that level of customer service that you expect as residents of this city. As an example of this staffing crisis, the community of Ahwatukee currently has approximately 77,000 residents. Approximately 35,000 more residents than the city of Prescott. However, per Prescott PD, they deploy with 7 officers and 1 sergeant every shift, every day of the week. We deploy with 3 officers in Ahwatukee for each shift, every day of the week. The city council must take a leadership role to secure the necessary funding to get our police to the appropriate staffing level and help us to live up and provide the exceptional customer service that the citizens of this Phoenix, of the city Phoenix, deserves. If anybody has any questions, I have some handouts. You can see me after. I've got the staffing numbers. And that's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Daryl. I have one more card with me. Oh, more have arrived. Great. Regina Nixon, and Regina will be followed by Jane Tisdale.
Good evening. How are you guys doing? Good. The arts are very strong here tonight, so I just want to give a shout out to all of our arts supporters and our young people who did a fantastic job really explaining how the arts improve the quality of life. And I would like to thank our council, Councilwoman Williams, Councilman Waring. When you think about arts and the role that it plays in our community, from the class with 6 months old to 5 years old that was in my facility 2 days ago, learning music competency and learning how to interact with their parents, to the seniors who are taking part of creative aging projects all around the city, to getting to go and look at a place like the Pioneer Living History Museum that gives us a very unique look into our cultural heritage, to getting to go and visit the Music Instrument Museum over in District 2 that is a world-renowned facility. The arts are vital to improving the quality of our life, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts and all of the people that we're serving and whose lives are being affected by the arts for your support. I can't tell you how important it is, not just for these young people, but for their parents and for the community to have that kind of creativity. And really, what does that mean? That means that we have the opportunity to make a future full of innovation and a future full of solutions to problems and roadblocks that we might encounter. So we just want to thank you. Now, in our perfect world, we would have a little bit more money, and a little bit more money would go to building capacity efforts for organizations like mine. I'm the executive director for the Phoenix Conservatory of Music, and I would say that we would not be where we are today without the help of the city. When we first started, I didn't know very much. Our annual budget was a whopping $59,000 a year. And it was through the programs that were put on by the City of Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture that allowed me to get the professional development that we needed in order to grow the capacity of our organization. And now we are a GOS Level 2 organization, so one tier down from the top, and we would not have been able to do that without that support. So that's the first thing. The second is that we have more applications coming in through neighborhood arts projects as well as festivals that we can't fund simply because there's just not enough money in the pot, right? And this is ways to bring communities together. So we're really happy with the level of support, and I do think a rainy day fund is a great idea. The fact that we have a balanced budget with an excess plan is like super awesome, right? And I commend you guys for your excellent work getting that done. We just, we know what the arts can do, right, here in this crowd. We know what it can do. It can change lives. So thank you very much for your part in that, and thank you for your support.
Thank you, Regina, very much. It's 3 minutes on the dot. You've got great timing as well. 2:58. Okay, all right. Jane Tisdale will be followed by Laura Vilde.
I want to say thank you to giving us this opportunity to speak about our concerns for our neighborhood. And I especially want to thank the law enforcement people that are here tonight. We so appreciate you. We pray for you, and I agree totally about your concerns. I want to speak tonight about street maintenance. We are original owners of our home for 43 years in District 1. We are just east of 51st Avenue, north of Greenway, actually north of Paradise Lane. We have lived there 43 years, and to my knowledge, there's maybe been one type of maintenance in that time. Kent and I are senior citizens, and while we are still mobile, we aren't able to take advantage of the parks and recreation often. But what we would like to do is walk in our neighborhood. And the potholes and the condition of the streets are not safe. If you have neuropathy or drop foot, which is common when you get to our age, the streets are a danger. And so I just like to say, and I understand that street maintenance will now be taking care of landscaping on the right-of-ways. And there are hazards that they're just not able to get to. So our concern tonight is for safety in our own neighborhood, for just enjoying nature and being able to walk on our city streets. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you, Thalda, for all you do.
Thank you, Jane. And one of our streets employees will find you if there's something specific that's an imminent hazard, we can make sure we get there right away. But thank you for that. Next, we have Laura Vilde, or I don't know if I'm saying that last name right. Wild with an E. Okay. And she'll be followed by Neil Haddad.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, council members, for letting us speak and presenting the budget and being accessible here today. I think that's really awesome. I'm here representing the City of Phoenix Arts and Culture Commission. I'm a commissioner, and I sit on the Arts Learning Committee that Regina chairs here. And there are a lot of arts supporters here, but so I want to talk briefly and quickly I'm the director of an arts and culture organization that's supported by the city of Phoenix, and being a director, I'm a bottom line person. So I think we can all agree that the arts have brought an amazing economic impact to Phoenix. In 2016, Roosevelt Row was named one of the greatest places in America. And from the end of 2015 to the start of 2017, about over 1,200 new apartments or condos were built in just that street span. So I think we can agree that the arts are a good thing for Phoenix and that they're promoting economic growth. And I think sometimes we have this misconception that the arts are a luxury item, but when you look at the impact that the arts have in education, students show better attendance. They improve academically, they build self-esteem and self-confidence over time. And so the money that would go to the City of Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture would support these organizations that go into schools and create these programs for students, especially in Title I schools that don't have the resources and have cut arts funding. 34% of Arizona's lowest performing schools have zero arts curriculum. And these organizations that apply for grants and receive funding and get professional development opportunities all receive encouragement from these grants. And so when you're looking at the money, a rainy day fund is great. Trust me, I have a contingency fund in my organization and for a baby. But a little bit to the arts can go a long way, not only for economic impact, but also for our youth, which I think is really important. So that's all I wanted to say, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. Next, we have Neil Haddad, and he's followed by Virgil Kane.
Thank you, council members and Mr. Zerker. Appreciate being here tonight. I'm here tonight as an advocate for police officers, and in particular street police officers, people that are out there protecting us every day and really in the line of fire, the people that run to a gunfight while we run away. Lots of numbers in the budget video. Some of the numbers that, for instance, Daryl covered before is about the 7-minute response time for Priority 1. A Priority 1 call, it's important to understand, those are like the worst of the worst. A Priority 1 call could be an attempted a robbery in progress, a home invasion in progress, a domestic violence situation. These are issues where the people involved are put at great danger and the officers involved are put at great risk. One of the other things that we don't talk about is backup for an officer. An officer is not going to go into a domestic violence situation as one person. They're going to have to wait for backup. That backup is also measured and is a much more lengthy process and a dangerous process, okay? I'm getting 3 minutes to talk here tonight. 2.5 times is the average citywide for police to respond to a Priority 1 call. The other number I want you to think about is close to 7, 6.9. 6.9 is the average squad size for the 116 squads that are in the city, the working teams that cover our 540 square miles, 116 squads. The ideal number is 12. When you have a size of 7, that means that people can't take vacation days, or they can't go to their kids' soccer games, because if they're off, they're affecting their colleagues that are on. When we, in 2014, we readjusted the precincts in this city from 8 down to 7. We have 6 precincts. We have 1 standalone downtown unit. We were told that we were doing that because we were going to beef up the squad sizes. This is a Band-Aid. We're not going to have enough police officers a year from now, 2 years from now, or when we hit the number that has been proposed, that 3125 number. It's not going to be enough. So we all in this room share that same problem. We don't have enough police officers. There is not enough money. We're not talking about next year, the shortfall of $40 to $61 million shortfall that's projected. That's big. That's really bad. The money isn't there. It's got to come from somewhere. We don't have enough people. We need to hire more people. We need you to ask your council people, your elected officials, to get more money for staffing, for sworn police officers. That's the only way it's going to make a difference. That's the only way we're going to get these numbers down. The other thing I just want to say is that we talked about the 2009 hiring freeze, where from 2009 to 2015, we didn't hire any police officers. What we didn't mention is that public safety officials, employees, took a voluntary 6.2% payroll cut. They have not gotten that money back yet. They will by next year. So if you take that dollar that you had in 2009 and wanted to do that same, see how much purchasing power that dollar had today, you're talking about 85% of what it was in 2009. So not only have they taken that cut, they did it so that other employees would not be fired, would not be cut, and they still don't have it back now. So they are contributing. We need to find ways to support them, to think about what they're dealing with on the street, and to think about their stress levels as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. The final card I have this evening is Virgil Kane.
Good evening. Thank you all for the opportunity to say a few words. I'm the chair of the Friends of the Library at Desert Broom, but I'm concerned about all the libraries, not just Desert Broom. I can speak personally for that library. We fund all the programs pretty much at that library, and we're fortunate to have a very successful book corner that generates quite a few book sales that folks are kind enough to donate to the library. And in addition to funding most of the programs at Desert Broom, we also fund programs at some of the other library branches throughout the year that don't have the funds to, for example, support their own summer program. So my thing is that the library is equally as important as this beautiful park we're sitting in right now, in this community center. Our library hours were cut during the recession that we had a number of years ago, never been restored. We're open 5 days a week, closed Sundays and Mondays, and weekdays we're open 11 to 7. So I would like to see if we could take a look at that. None of that has ever been restored. We have a very, very active, busy library. It's a hub of the community, and not just our community, but every library is a hub of the community. So I suggest that we take a long and hard look and restoring some of the funding that was cut and never reinstated, because it's an important part of our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Virgil. That's all the cards I have. Did we miss anybody who wants to speak? Okay. I want to thank you. I'll offer our council members, they want to wrap up for us.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for coming tonight and speaking out. It's very important. No budget is set until we have all of these hearings, and it always changes from what we hear. So I congratulate you for having the nerve to come out here and speak. I applaud the young people. It's got to be a first. We've never had the music before. We'll see you again next year, I hope. You know, everything we do in the budget is important. And we had a serious recession that we really had to slash the budget. And we are just now climbing out of the hole. I understand why we need more officers. I understand why we have a homeless and transient problem. I understand that we need the libraries because they not only function in so many ways, but they also become babysitters for many people after school and on weekends. The music is important. I agree with Regina. What you do is marvelous, and that's heals the soul. I applaud city staff for working so hard. They have really trimmed, they've become more efficient, they have downsized, we have cut employees, we're trying to do more with less. And we're not going to climb out of this quickly. We're going to have a couple more years to struggle through this process. But hang with us because there is light at the end of the tunnel. We will get streets fixed and we will get sidewalks, because I know our neighborhood doesn't have sidewalks close to where you do. And I also know how the potholes are. I had a new hip and had to walk up and down the street and complain to Ed every day about the potholes. So I just thank you all again for being here and participating. You make a difference, and you are why this community is great.
I don't know if I can follow up on that, so I'll just say thank you very much for coming. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all.
You have been watching a community budget hearing held recently in Phoenix. For questions, comments, or ideas, please visit phoenix.gov or call 602-262-4800. You can also send feedback through social media by using #PhoenixBudget. This video can also be seen online at phoenix.gov/PHXTV or youtube.com/City of Phoenix AZ.